Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Wednesday, November 2nd. Over the last 1 to 2 weeks, we've seen precipitation mainly targeted across Idaho, Wyoming, and down into Utah, and parts of northeast Nevada, where some of these areas have seen above normal precipitation over the last 2 weeks. Still, some very dry areas remain from the Arizona Strip into southern and western Nevada and the Sierra. Over the last 72 hours, we've seen new snowfall, however, with the most recent storm, in the Sierra especially, where we've seen totals over 6 inches. We've also had new snowfall up into central Idaho and into parts of northern Nevada. We are having snowfall this morning in parts of northern Utah. The snow depth is indicated on the right, and the snowpack is generally above normal across the Great Basin. The satellite loop from this morning shows a deep area of low pressure moving into the west coast. This is bringing much colder temperatures and additional rounds of wind and precipitation to the Great Basin. Today we will see this low continue to track eastward, with precipitation especially over the eastern half of the Great Basin, but still some showers beneath the low over western areas as well. With the cold temperatures and the precipitation, significant fire potential will remain low region-wide. Today, transport winds will be strongest ahead of this area of low pressure over southern Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and into southern and eastern Utah. Mixing heights will remain high region-wide. Today we will also see much higher humidity with the clouds and precipitation and cooler temperatures already in place with this next system moving through. And we will continue to see good ventilation and dispersion over parts of southern and eastern areas of the Great Basin and parts of Idaho, where the gustier transport winds will be located, but generally moderate to poor dispersion over parts of Nevada and the rest of northern Utah. As we move into Thursday, this cold front and strong area of low pressure move eastward into the eastern side of the Great Basin, keeping cold temperatures region-wide, but also moisture in the eastern areas and low fire potential. Transport winds will be breezy behind this area of low pressure, so we will see those stronger transport winds across much of Nevada, into parts of northern Utah, and into eastern Idaho. And mixing heights will generally remain high region-wide, but a little bit low over parts of eastern Utah beneath the area of low pressure. On Thursday, we will continue to see higher humidity, especially across the eastern half of the Great Basin, but humidity will drop a little bit over parts of southern Nevada as drier air works its way in. Otherwise, dispersion will remain quite good on the backside of the area of low pressure. We will see still breezy winds and breezy transport winds to keep dispersion good across much of the central areas of the Great Basin, but areas further east, dispersion will remain poor over southern and eastern Utah. As we move into Friday, this low tracks to the east. We will see another system dropping down south, with cloud cover pushing into the Great Basin and still low fire potential. Winds will start to pick up, with the transport winds becoming breezy again over northern areas and remaining somewhat gusty in the higher terrain of Utah. Otherwise, mixing heights generally low to moderate. On Friday, we will continue to see some drying over southern areas of the Great Basin as the area of low pressure moves further east, and we will have some lighter winds, so generally poor dispersion over parts of central areas of the Great Basin. Cold temperatures are returning again. Today we will see very cold temperatures with highs only in the 30s and 40s across much of the Great Basin. The only exceptions will be out ahead of the cold front over southern areas of the Great Basin and southeast Utah that will still remain in the 50s and 60s. However, by tomorrow that cold front sweeps through all of the Great Basin, so highs region-wide, with the exception of far southern Nevada, will remain in the 30s and 40s with very cold overnight low temperatures. The forecast clearing index for Utah shows generally high clearing indices across much of the state this week. The only exceptions will be in some of the higher terrain as we move into later in the week. And looking at the 3-day forecast amount of precipitation, still good amounts of precipitation across especially Utah, up into Wyoming and central Idaho over the next few days as that cold front moves through the area. As we move into the weekend, we will see kind of a break in weather initially, generally zonal westerly flow, which will keep dispersion higher, so for some good ventilation, and continued low significant fire potential. On Sunday, the next area of low pressure drops down along the northwest coast, so we will see winds increasing out of the southwest and still good dispersion, mostly region-wide. Continued low fire potential. On Monday, this low starts to swing further eastward, pushing additional precipitation and colder temperatures back into the Great Basin, with still low fire potential. And on Tuesday, again, the area of low pressure encompasses much of the west, with again cooler temperatures and some precipitation. This will provide some breezy winds, so we are expecting good dispersion going into the weekend and into early next week. Still continued low fire potential. Precipitation for days 4 and 5, taking us from Saturday through Monday morning, again shows that return of moisture to the northern areas as that low approaches, especially later in the weekend. And then going into early next week, that precipitation continues to move south with good amounts of new precipitation and snowfall in the Sierra. And then the 7-day total clearly shows precipitation across much of the region. The only areas that might see lighter amounts of precipitation or very little will be parts of southern and central Nevada. The 8 to 14-day outlook, taking us from November 9th through the 15th, shows this continued stormier pattern with cooler temperatures and above normal precipitation across much of the west into the northern tier of the country. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back on Monday for the latest updates.